Hey, Stories of the Soul fam. We've got a swoon-worthy love story for you today. Let's jump in and tell us. What cities are the corridors of Aurora Prime, hummed with the gentle vibration of life support systems? But tonight they felt different to Zara Nova. More electric. More alive. She pressed her back against the cool metal wall, clutching a sealed datapad to her chest, like it contained the secrets of the universe, which in many ways it did. Her heart raced as footsteps echoed from around the corner, heavy boots, military precision. Captain Dex Vorthen was looking for her, and she was not ready for that conversation. Not yet. The discovery she had made in the ice samples from Europa was too dangerous. It's world-changing to discuss with anyone, especially the new pilot who had been assigned to her next mission. Zara took a deep breath and stepped into the main corridor. Her lab coat fluttered behind her as she walked quickly toward the science wing. The station's artificial gravity felt heavier tonight, or maybe that was just the weight of what she knew. In the sealed container back in her lab, microscopic organisms pulsed with an intelligence that defied everything humanity understood about life and the cosmos. Dr. Nova. The voice stopped her cold. Deep, warm, with just a hint of an accent she could not place. Zara's grip tightened on the datapad as she turned around slowly. Captain Dex Vorthen stood 10 feet away, his tall frame filling the corridor with a presence that made her breath catch. His dark hair was slightly mussed, as if he had been running his hands through it. His green eyes held an intensity that made her feel like he could see straight through her professional facade. "Captain," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "I was just heading to my lab at 0300 hours." He stepped closer, and Zara caught a hint of his scent. Something clean and masculine, mixed with the faint ozone smell that clung to pilots who spent too much time around spacecraft engines. That's dedication. Zara tried to step around him, but Dex moved slightly, not blocking her path but making it clear he wanted to talk. The corridor suddenly felt much smaller, more intimate. The soft blue emergency lighting cast shadows across his angular face, making him look both dangerous and impossibly handsome. "I have work to do," she said, lifting her chin in a gesture she hoped looked confident rather than nervous. "About the Europa samples." His words were not a question. Zara's blood turned to ice water in her veins. How did he know about that? The samples were classified at the highest levels. Only she, Dr. Finn Walsh, and Admiral Torres even knew they existed. Her mouth went dry as she stared at him, searching his face for any clue about what he knew and how he knew it. "I don't know what you're talking about," she lied, but her voice wavered just enough to give her away. Dex smiled, a slow, knowing curve of his lips that sent heat spiraling through her chest. "You're a terrible liar, Dr. Nova. It's actually kind of adorable." The word adorable coming from his mouth, in that low, rumbling voice, made Zara's knees feel weak. She had been called many things in her career: brilliant, dedicated, ruthless when it came to her research. But no one had ever called her adorable, and certainly not while looking at her the way Dex was looking at her now. "How do you know about the samples?" she demanded, taking a step backward. Instead of answering, Dex stepped forward, closing the distance between them. Zara's back hit the wall, and she realized she had nowhere to go. The datapad in her hands felt hot against her palms, as Dex braced one hand against the wall beside her head. He was close enough that she could see gold flecks in his green eyes, close enough that the heat from his body made her feel dizzy. "Because I've been waiting for you to find them," he said softly. "We've been waiting, The word came out as barely more than a whisper. Before Dex could answer, the corridor filled with the sound of running footsteps. Dr. Finn Walsh came around the corner at a dead sprint, his usually perfect appearance disheveled, and his face flushed with excitement or panic. "Zara," Finn called out, then slowed as he noticed her position against the wall with Dex standing so close. "Oh, sorry. Am I interrupting something?" Zara felt her cheeks burn as she ducked under Dex's arm and stepped away from the wall. "No. We were just talking about the mission parameters." Finn raised an eyebrow but did not comment on the obvious lie. Instead, he held up his own datapad, which was flashing with urgent red alerts. "We have a problem. The samples you brought back from Europa, they're not just alive, Zara. They're trying to communicate." The datapad slipped from Zara's suddenly nerveless fingers. It clattered to the floor, and both she and Dex bent to retrieve it at the same time. Their hands touched as they both reached for the device, and an electric shock of awareness shot up Zara's arm. She looked up to find Dex's face inches from hers, his eyes dark with something that looked like hunger. "The organisms," Dex said, his voice so quiet that only she could hear him. "They've been trying to reach us for months. They chose you, Zara. They wanted you to be the one to find them." "That's impossible," she breathed. But even as she said it, she knew it was not. The samples had been too perfect, too easy to find. And the way they pulsed in their containment unit looked almost like a pattern, like a language. Dex's fingers curled around hers, warm and strong. "Nothing's impossible when it comes to love, Dr. Nova. Not even love that spans across species." The words hit her like a physical blow. Love across species? What was he talking about? Why did the way he said her name make her want to forget about protocols and propriety and everything except the way he was looking at her? "Zara," Finn said urgently, clearly oblivious to the charged moment happening right in front of him. "We need to get to the lab now. The samples are doing something I've never seen before." Dex stood slowly, pulling Zara up with him. His hand lingered on hers for just a moment too long before he stepped back and resumed his professional demeanor. But his eyes never left her face, and the intensity in them made her feel like she was standing at the edge of a cliff. "Lead the way, Dr. Walsh," Dex said. "I think it's time Dr. Nova and I had a real conversation about what we found on Europa." As they walked toward the science wing, Zara's mind raced with questions. How did Dex know about the samples? What did he mean when he said we'd been waiting? And why did every instinct in her body tell her that following him deeper into the station was either the best or the worst decision she would ever make? The laboratory doors slid open with a soft hiss, revealing the sterile white walls and gleaming equipment that had been Zara's sanctuary for the past 3 years. But tonight, even her own lab felt different, charged with possibility and danger in equal measure. In the center of the room, the containment unit housing the Europa samples glowed with a soft, pulsing blue light. The organisms inside moved in perfect synchronization, their bioluminescent patterns shifting and changing like a living constellation. "Beautiful, aren't they?" Dex said softly, stepping up beside her. Zara stared at the samples, then at him. "You've seen them before, every night in my dreams," he admitted, his voice rough with emotion. "They've been calling to us, Zara, to humanity, and specifically to you," as if responding to his words. The organisms in the containment unit pulsed brighter, their movements becoming more complex and deliberate. Zara watched in fascination and growing terror as she realized Dex was right. The patterns were not random. They were a message, a greeting, an invitation. "What do they want?" she whispered. Dex turned to face her fully, his expression serious and tender at the same time. "They want to show us that love is the most powerful force in the universe, that it can bridge any gap, overcome any obstacle, and connect any two beings who are brave enough to reach for it." His hand found hers again, their fingers intertwining as naturally as if they had been doing it for years instead of minutes. "They want to show us what it means to truly connect with another consciousness, and they chose us to be their ambassadors." Zara's rational mind screamed that this was insane, impossible, but her heart, her soul, every cell in her body was singing with recognition. This was why she had become a xenobiologist. This was the moment she had been preparing for her entire life. "What happens now?" she asked. Nex smiled, and for the first time since she had met him, it was completely open and unguarded. "Now we take a leap of faith together. Are you ready for the ride of your life, Dr. Zaranova?" Looking into his eyes, feeling the pulse of alien intelligence from the containment unit, Zara knew there was only one answer she could give. The research vessel Starweaver drifted through the void between Jupiter and Europa, its sleek hull reflecting the distant light of Sol. Inside the ship's laboratory module, Zara floated in zero gravity, her dark hair forming a halo around her face as she studied the alien samples. 3 days had passed since they left Aurora Prime. Every hour brought new revelations that challenged everything she thought she knew about life in the universe. "The organisms are responding to proximity," she murmured into her recording device, watching as the bioluminescent patterns shifted and pulsed in their containment field. "The closer we get to Europa, the more active they become. It's as if they're eager to go home." A gentle touch on her shoulder made her turn. Dex floated behind her, his pilot's uniform replaced by the casual jumpsuit all crew members wore during long space flights. The fabric clung to his muscular frame in ways that made Zara's breath catch, and she found herself staring at the way the ship's soft lighting played across his features. "Any new discoveries?" he asked, moving to float beside her. In zero gravity, their bodies naturally drifted closer together, and Zara could feel the warmth radiating from his skin. "They're definitely trying to communicate," she said, forcing herself to focus on the science instead of the way his presence made her pulse quicken. "The patterns are becoming more complex as we approach Europa. I think they're excited." Dex smiled, and the expression transformed his entire face. Gone was the mysterious intensity that had first drawn her to him, replaced by genuine warmth and something that looked suspiciously like affection. "They're not the only ones who are excited." Before Zara could ask what he meant, the ship's communication system crackled to life. "All crew to the observation deck," came the voice of Chief Engineer Blake, Zara's protective colleague who had insisted on joining the mission. "We're approaching Europa's orbit, and you need to see this." They made their way through the ship's corridors using the handholds, their bodies occasionally bumping together in the confined space. Each touch sent electricity through Zara's nervous system, making her hyper-aware of every point of contact. When Dex's hand accidentally brushed across her lower back, as they navigated a particularly narrow passage, I had to bite back a soft gasp. The observation deck's massive viewport revealed Europa in all its ice-covered glory. The moon's surface gleamed like a pearl against the black of space, its frozen oceans hiding secrets that humanity was only beginning to understand. But what took Zara's breath away was not Europa itself, but what surrounded it. Thousands of lights danced in the space around the moon, moving in graceful patterns that seemed almost like a welcome celebration. They pulsed in rhythm with each other, creating waves of illumination that rippled across the void. "What are those?" Blake asked, his weathered face pressed against the viewport. Dex moved to float beside Zara, his voice soft with wonder. "They're ships. The same beings that created the organisms in your samples. They've been waiting for us." As if responding to his words, the lights began to move in a more organized formation, creating a corridor of gentle illumination that led directly to Europa's surface. The invitation was unmistakable. "How do you know all this?" Zara demanded, turning to face Dex fully. "You've been mysterious about your knowledge since the moment we met. I need answers." Dex was quiet for a long moment, his green eyes reflecting the dancing lights outside. When he finally spoke, his voice carried the weight of secrets finally being shared. 6 months ago, I was piloting a routine supply run to the outer system, when my ship was caught in what we thought was an ion storm. But it wasn't natural weather. It was them trying to make contact. He gestured toward the lights outside. It didn't hurt me. Instead, they showed me visions. Beautiful, impossible things. Cities beneath Europa's ice. Beings of light and water who had been watching humanity for centuries, waiting for us to develop enough to understand them. Zara's scientific mind reeled with the implications. First contact. You've already had first contact, and you didn't report it. They asked me not to, Dex said simply. They wanted to choose their own moment, their own messenger. They told me about you, Zara. They knew you would be the one to find the samples they left for us. They knew you would understand. The ship shuddered gently as it entered Europa's atmosphere, following the corridor of lights toward the moon's surface. Through the viewport, Zara could see the ice beginning to crack and part, revealing dark water beneath. The alien ships were creating an opening, melting through the frozen crust to expose the ocean below. This is incredible, Blake breathed, his engineer's mind clearly overwhelmed by the technology they were witnessing. As they descended through the opening in the ice, the water around them began to glow with the same bioluminescent patterns Zara had observed in her samples. The entire ocean seemed alive with communication, welcoming them into a world that existed between water and starlight. Look, Dex whispered, pointing toward a massive structure rising from the ocean floor. It was a city unlike anything human imagination had ever conceived. Towers of living coral reached toward the surface, their walls pulsing with gentle light. Gardens of seaweed swayed in carefully maintained currents, and beings of graceful beauty moved through the water with fluid elegance. Commander Nix will meet us at the docking platform, Dex said, as if this were the most natural thing in the world. Commander Nix, Zara asked, their diplomatic leader. She's the one who chose me as first contact. She specifically requested to meet you. The Star Weaver settled into a bioluminescent docking bay that seemed to grow around the ship like a living embrace. Through the water-filled transparent tubes that connected to their airlock, Zara could see figures approaching. They moved with the fluid grace of beings born to the water. Their bodies elongated and elegant, skin that seemed to shift between silver and deep blue depending on the light. The lead figure was clearly female, with features that combined otherworldly beauty with obvious intelligence. Her large, dark eyes held depths that seemed to contain entire galaxies. And when she looked directly at the viewport where Zara floated, she smiled in a way that transcended species. "She's beautiful," Zara whispered, feeling a stab of something that might have been jealousy. "She is," Dex agreed. But when Zara turned to look at him, she found his eyes fixed on her instead of the alien commander. But beauty comes in many forms. Some forms of beauty can reach across space and species to touch your soul in ways you never thought possible. His hand found hers in the zero gravity, their fingers intertwining with a naturalness that defied the artificial environment around them. "Zara, what I'm about to tell you might sound impossible, but the connection I feel with you, it's not just human attraction, it's something deeper, something the Europeans helped me understand." "What do you mean?" she asked, though part of her already knew. The pull she felt toward him had been too strong, too immediate to be merely physical attraction. "Love," he said simply. "Not just as humans understand it, but as a universal force. A way that consciousness reaches out to find its match across any barrier. The Europeans have been studying it for millennia. They say that when two beings are truly meant to connect, the universe itself conspires to bring them together." Outside the ship, Commander Nix gestured toward the airlock, her movements graceful and welcoming. The water in the docking tube began to drain, replaced by a breathable atmosphere that glowed with the same gentle light as the city around them. "Are you ready?" Dex asked, squeezing Zara's hand gently. Looking into his eyes, feeling the pulse of alien welcome from outside their ship. Zara knew she was standing at the threshold of something that would change not just her understanding of the universe, but her understanding of herself. The rational part of her mind cataloged all the impossibilities, all the protocols they were breaking, all the risks they were taking. But her heart, her soul, every instinct that had led her to become a scientist in the first place, sang with the rightness of this moment. They were not just making first contact with an alien species. They were discovering that love truly was the most powerful force in the universe, capable of bridging any gap between minds, hearts, and souls. "I'm ready," she said, and meant it completely. As they prepared to leave the ship and enter the underwater city, Zara realized that Dex had been right about one thing. She was about to experience the ride of her life. And for the first time in her career as a scientist, she was more interested in the journey than the destination. The universe had just become a much more romantic place.